قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to our live episode of Ask Zad, coming to you Saturday after Maghrib prayer in Mecca region. And as usual, we'll take three or so questions from the emails, and then we will take your direct phone calls. So the questioner says, does a small amount of water becomes Negis, that is impure, if some impurity falls into it, but its characteristics do not change? This is a very long topic that was discussed in the books of jurisprudence, of fiqh, in different schools of thought. And mainly the reason of difference of opinion is a number of evidences. One, the hadith that when the water is over 2 pots or jars, it does not carry impurity, because the amount of water is a lot. And the other hadith is, water is tuhur. The water is tahur, and it is not rendered najis by anything. And a number of other hadiths that fall under the same guidelines. So some scholars said that if the water is below the level of 2 qullah, jars or pots, big pots, then it carries impurity, regardless. And some said, no, it doesn't carry impurity, or it is not rendered as impure, because the Prophet said that water is tahur. And it is not rendered najis by anything that falls into it. Now they all agree that if the water, whether a lot or little, if one of the 3 characteristics of it has changed by an impurity, a najasa, then it becomes najis. And these characteristics are the smell, the color, and the taste, or the taste, one of these 3. So if there is a lake, the sea water, the ocean water, the Nile, the river, this is not rendered as najis because it's always running, and no matter how impurity you put in it, it does not change its characteristics because it's a lot. But now the problem is, if we come to a small amount of water and a tiny little drop of urine fell into it, I'm not going to drink it, of course. But if I look into it and I smell it and I taste it, but if so happens, and there is nothing that has changed. So all the characteristics of water remain as water. It was not changed by this little minute impurity that fell into it. This is the issue of dispute. Some scholars say, no, it is najis, even if it's not changed, because it's less than 2 jars or 2 pots. Some, and this is the most authentic opinion, say that as long as the 3 characteristics did not change, then the water is still pure, and we cannot describe it otherwise. So this is the most authentic opinion of scholars. Now, if you want to be safe, you can easily avoid the water that had impurity in it for certain, but it did not change its characteristics. If the amount is negligible, so if it's like 5-6 liters and you can dispose of that just to be safe and to be careful for your religion, that would be okay. But if you use that water because the characteristics are intact and not changed by an impurity, this is the most authentic opinion and there's no problem on you in that. A sister says, is it permissible for a woman to get her underarms and pubic hair removed by a woman at the salon? As for the armpit or the underarms hair, this is acceptable because the area is not a definite awrah for a woman to look at. So for necessity, for a need, yeah, this is applicable, as in the case when a woman breastfeeds her child in front of another woman. Definitely something would show, and this is not considered to be a heavy awrah. It is negligible and accepted between women themselves for a need. As for the pubic hair, it's an issue of dispute. Some schools of thought say that this is okay, and others say, no, this is not okay at all, unless there's a necessity. There is a real need for it, as in the case of a woman who's so fat, cannot see her pubic area, cannot remove herself, or she is handicapped, she cannot reach it, she is unable to do it on her own, or because the area needs treatment due to the heavy growth of hair, and that it cannot be removed in normal ways, whatever. If there's a real need and a necessity, then this becomes permissible, as when a woman goes to a doctor, a gynecologist, to examine her and look at places no one is permitted to look at except her spouse. But this is for necessity permissible, same thing. Generally speaking, going to do your Brazilian bikini or whatever, this is not permissible at all. It's haram, it's forbidden, it's a major sin. And not only that, the people usually go for laser treatment. This laser treatment is permissible providing it is safe, medically safe, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. A sister says, is it permissible for a woman? Okay, we've gone through that. Haq says, there is a practice here in Bangladesh that if you step on something valuable such as books, food, money, etc., you have to kiss it and touch it on your forehead as a form of respect. Is this from Islam? The answer is no. This is totally prohibited and an innovation. It is found in most Muslim countries. And this shows you how innovation, how bid'ah spreads worse than hayfire. So what they do is, if they find a piece of bread thrown on the ground, they pick it up, they kiss it, and they make what is known as small sajda, small prostration, like this. And they put it in some place respectful or on a high level or in a high place. This is a bid'ah. Likewise, when they say money on the ground, they do the same. If they see the Quran or books of knowledge, all of these are innovation. Kissing it is not from the Sunnah. And this is why Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, our Sayyid, Sayyiduna Umar, says, speaking to the black stone so that his companions would hear him, he said, I know that you are a rock that bears no benefit nor can protect from harm. Had I not seen the Prophet ﷺ kiss you, I would have not kissed you. So he's telling us why he's kissing the black stone, that he would not do so, but the issue is that the Prophet did it, so he's following his footsteps sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and likewise we should follow the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ and not kiss such things, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. So the first questioner is Hamza from Bosnia. Hamza?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When people do congregational dhikr in a mosque after, for example, Friday Jummah prayer, I know it's bidah, but my question is, should I stay in my place after concluding the salam and do my own dhikr on my own, or should I leave the mosque and do it away from such people who innovate in our religion?
Okay.
Jazakallahu khairan.
Wa jazak. Mus'ad from Germany.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, I know with madrasa where the kids studying there are mostly orphan and physically challenged. But the problem is they teach Ashari and Maturidi Aqidah. My question is, can we donate money to a madrasa where we know for sure that they teach Ashari and Maturidi Aqidah and also practice some innovations?
Okay, I will answer inshallah. Fawzan from Indonesia.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salamtullah. Yes, Fawzan.
Can you hear me, Sheikh?
Now I can hear you. Before, no. Now I cannot hear you, Fawzan.
So, Sheikh, I've already known what act that required sujud sahwi, what lack of act that requires sujud sahwi in salah. But what I want to ask is, what kind of excessive act that also requires sujud sahwi? For example, I have ever mistakenly, unintentionally read my personal dua in my ruku. And also I have ever unintentionally pointing my index finger in the middle of a sit between two sujud. Is it also requires sujud sahwi or not?
Okay, I will answer inshallah. Insiram from Australia.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salamtullah wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, I was wondering, what's the correct way of having the ladies' space in the masjid according to the way it was at the time of the Prophet? Because nowadays we see some masajid, they have like a separate room or they have an upstairs section. Are these valid? And
I don't understand your question, Insiram.
So in the masjid, the space for the sisters to pray.
For the sisters?
Yeah, sisters, yeah, the ladies. So because some masajid, they have the upstairs section, some have a separate room.
Okay, I will answer inshallah. And Fuad from Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear Fadilatul Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أحبك في الله, Sheikh.
أحبك الله الذي أحببتني فيه.
Sheikh, my question is, many people, when they look at the mirror, say, Allahumma anta hassanta khalqi fahassin khuluqi. Is the dua authentic?
Okay.
And can we read the dua?
Okay, I will answer inshallah. And Shad from Iraq.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamtullah.
I know someone who intentionally eats garlic before going to before a congregation, so that it is not obligation on him to go. Is this permissible?
Okay, I will answer inshallah. Muhammad from the Philippines.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamtullah.
How are you, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah.
So my question, Sheikh, is, Sheikh, sometimes when I come late in the masjid for prayers that are silent prayers or silent rak'ah, and then I found that the imam is like halfway in his recitation, I do not join the imam and wait until the imam is in the ruku position, because I'm afraid that if I join with the imam, I may not finish reciting the Surah Al-Fatiha. So am I doing the right thing, Sheikh, where I do not join the imam and wait until he is in the ruku position? Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
Okay, wajazak. And Mahmoud from Emirates.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yes, Mahmoud.
How are you?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah.
Can you give more information about this hadith that says there will be Firqa and Naji. There will be from my ummati 73 ummah will be separated by Prophet Muhammad.
Okay, I will answer inshallah. And Muhammad from the US.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, I wanted to know to work in an airline company in the department where they works with the fare prices, calculates fares, taxes and those. Is it halal?
So you're asking me about the ruling in working for a tax department?
No, that is not basically tax department. They work with the fares, airline companies' fares for the flights. So they calculate fares.
Okay, what does this company do? It's a travel agency, or is it an audit company, or it's an accountant firm? I don't know. What is the line of work that you're asking about?
It's an airline company.
It's an airline company. So in an airline company, there is a department, and this department's job is to calculate the cost of the fuel, of the taxes given on different airports for that airplane to stay there for a day or two, on the payroll, and they come with a cost and they add some money to it, and they say, okay, from Jeddah to London, the fare would be so and so. Is this the role of the company,
Yes.
of the department?
Yes, Sheikh.
No problem working there, akhi. Alhamdulillah.
Okay.
Okay, Labib from Bangladesh.
Hello, Sheikh.
Yes, Labib.
Can you hear me, Sheikh?
Now I can hear you.
Sheikh, I was laying on my bed, and I feel like there's something came out from my private part. So I touched it. It was dry, but I pressed it a bit, and I feel something dry and sticky, a bit sticky. Now I wash my hand. Now I even checked my pants, and I didn't find any visible symptoms, traces of impurity. Now should I my garments to be pure, though I cannot differentiate between what is it wadi or madi because it's different.
So did you wash your underwear and your private part?
I washed my private part, but not the pants, because I didn't see any traces nor any smell or nothing.
Okay, I will answer inshallah. And Amjad from India.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamullah.
Sheikh, my question is, I saw one of your video in where someone asks you that if someone misses Asr prayer, then what?
If someone what?
Asr prayer.
If someone misses Asr prayer.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And you replied him and said that if someone misses Asr prayer, and if it is Maghrib time and there is no Asr prayer time left, so one should go and join the Imam of the Maghrib prayer, and he should pray 3 rakah as Imam prayed 3, and he should get up and pray extra 1 rakah. So I did the same way as you said, and behind my there were 2-3 rows, and when I started to get up, and here people started to looking me that I did something strange thing, and my friends asked me that why I did that. So I told them that I make up my Asr prayer, and they told me that my prayer is not valid, and they were asking me the reference from it, that from where I got that.
Okay, I will answer inshallah. Jahua from South Korea. Jahua.
Hello. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, is the name right?
Yes, yes, ahwa, yes.
Jahwa, okay. Yes.
So, Sheikh, I have a question. Like, as we are living in South Korea, so the food is like any drink, like apple drinks or like egg sandwich. In the ingredient, there is nothing, but they said in the bottom of the list, like there will be some contamination. So, is this allowed to eat those kind of food? Is that okay?
They confess that there is contamination with pork.
Yeah, like pork or like beef or chicken, something like meat related something, but that like this is like drinks or this is like egg sandwich. I cannot see any meat, but it is written there is some, it can be some contamination. Like maybe in the same company or maybe something, but they said people who have allergy, please don't consume it.
Okay, I will answer you inshallah. Saad from Qatar.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam wa barakatuh.
Recently, I have found out that in wudu, you have to wash your hands when washing your arms in wudu. It's about washing from the tips till the elbow. Can you elaborate more about this, Sheikh?
I will inshallah. And we have CD from Germany.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam wa barakatuh.
How are you, Sheikh?
I'm doing well, alhamdulillah.
Sheikh, I have a really big problem because I'm a certain reason. I'm now in the school and I'm, alhamdulillah, in the final years. But there's a really big problem because I'm in a subject, there's a subject where unfortunately there's the topic we should read and work with a novel, and this novel contains pure kufr, pure blasphemies. Like there are lies about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Jibreel alayhi salam, in Mikael alayhi salam, and there also contains many blasphemous things, like there's a guy who wants to be equal like Allah, wa yadu billah. And I am really big dilemma because I don't work with it at all, but because I need the degree to pass this graduation. So I don't know what to do because the only option is there's two options. The first option is I work with it and get maybe inshallah a good grade, but the issue is I feel that I may fall into kufr, and that's I want to prevent at all.
I will answer inshallah. Halima from Nigeria.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salamullah.
Yeah, can I replace Ruqya by listening to Quran and making dua?
You cannot recite Ruqya on your own?
Sometimes I don't feel good to recite Ruqya on my own.
Okay, I will answer inshallah. Khalilullah from Nigeria.
Assalamu alaikum to Sheikh.
Assalamu wa barakatuh.
So I want to ask, so when the Imam use one of the taslim, so is it compulsory for the people praying behind to say the same thing, or they can say their own? So another thing I want to ask is, so should I focus on my Arabiya, or I should rather continue, I should focus on the memorization of Quran?
I could not understand the first part of your question. If the Imam says what?
Okay, I'm talking about the taslim, the version of, we have different version of taslim. So if the Imam says one, should the people praying behind say the same thing, or they can say any other version?
Taslim, you mean salutation upon the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad?
No, taslim, assalamu alaikum to Allah, after that's the concluding the salah.
So saying assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Yeah, so what if the Imam says assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah?
Okay, I will answer inshallah. And Akbar from India.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.
I have a question regarding the mandatory ghusl for praying when we are in the state of janaba.
Okay.
I have a nasal infection called sinusitis, which is in hyper state. It is nearly impossible for me to perform ghusl before sunrise. While ago, when I did it, I became extremely sick till I consulted a doctor and took medication. Can I pray Fajr and recite Quran without the ghusl when I am in a state of janaba?
Okay. Kareem from Holland.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu wa barakatuh.
I know someone that has severe OCD and he repeats things many times, and it takes much of his time. Sorry?
I did not say anything.
Oh, I heard someone else. Okay, it got to a point where he told Allah that he doesn't want to live anymore, and he said to Allah, "Why am I still alive?" And another time he was repeating a prayer many times, and one time before he started again, he got angry and he started hitting things, and he also hit the prayer mat. So is that statement of his kufr, is that objecting to Allah's decree, and is the other one also kufr, like to hit the prayer mat?
Okay, I will answer inshallah. And we have Muhammad from India.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, my question is, how major does a problem need to be for a man to skip congregational prayers in the mosque? So, for example, does he simple problems like sickness or 10 floors to climb applicable, or does it have to be a life and death situation?
Okay, I will answer inshallah. Farishta from the US.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salamullah.
Can you talk about or clarify the consumption of non-zabiha meat? There seems to be a debate about it among the Muslims here in the United States.
Okay, I will answer inshallah. And finally, Hudhaifa from Bahrain.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamullah.
How are you, Sheikh?
I'm doing fine, alhamdulillah.
Sheikh, I want to ask that as we know that we have to put, look in our eyes into the place of sujood, right? While prayer.
What? Yes, correct.
So as we know that many of the mosques have microphones. So when the imam recites in the microphone, his eyesight is straight, as we see in the Haram Nabwi, many places. So what's the ruling on this?
Okay, I will answer inshallah. So, this is all what we have for tonight's questions. As for the answers, we have a short break. Stay tuned, inshallah. We'll be right back.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm going to talk about the book Interactions of the Greatest Leader. Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no one's wealth helped me as much as the wealth of Abu Bakr helped me. After which Abu Bakr began to weep and say, and is my life and wealth for anything besides you, O Messenger of Allah? This narration shows the level of etiquette and humbleness that Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, had in the presence of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For he likened himself to a slave of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by saying that his wealth was only for the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as his soul and self. This comes as no surprise, for the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has more right on the believers than themselves. He, may Allah be pleased with him, spent his wealth in the cause of Allah, and he consoled the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam through his own self. So the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recognized that for him and said, in order to build his stature and to remind the ummah of his virtues, no one's wealth helped me as much as the wealth of Abu Bakr helped me. Among the benefits of this narration, it is important to keep good manners and humbleness in the presence of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thanking someone who has bestowed some favor on you, as well as supplicating for them, is part of having good manners. Reported by Al-Bukhari, reported by Al-Tirmidhi, and Ibn Majah. Albani ruled it authentic in his book Sahih Al-Jami'. the explanation of As-Sindi on the book of Ibn Majah, and At-Taysir بشرح الجامع الصغير.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome back. So we have to click on rapid fire because we have 23 minutes and 21 questions. So I'll do my level best to answer them, but if not, then the questions unanswered will be inshallah addressed tomorrow in Sunday's episode. Hamza from Bosnia Herzegovina, he says that when the people do congregational dua after Jumu'ah, should I remain where I'm sitting making my adhkar or move out? If it's easy for you to move out, it would be a declaration of opposition to their bid'ah, and you would be distancing yourself away from them. But if there's problem or maybe problems to be caused by such a move, you can remain and make your own dhikr. Mus'ad from Germany says, can I contribute to an orphanage and a school for poor people, but they teach corrupt aqeedah? The answer is no. You must not give your money to a place that endorses and promotes corrupt aqeedah for children who will become men with corrupt aqeedah. Simply give your money to places that you know that would endorse and promote the authentic aqeedah of the Prophet ﷺ. Fawzan from Indonesia, he says, if I were to make a lot of dua in sujood or ruku', does this require sujood as-sahw? The answer is no. If I added a movement of the finger, not when doing tashahhud, rather between the two prostrations, when I'm sitting saying, Rabbi ghfirli, I moved it unintentionally. Does it require? The answer is no. Even if you do it intentionally, it doesn't require sujood as-sahw. In Saram from Australia, what is the distance between ladies' prayer area and the men's prayer area? Because some masjids put it on the second floor, some put it in the basement, some people put a visor between men and women, and some put a curtain, etc. All of this is up to the preference of the people of the masjid. The sunnah was that men were at front and women were at the very back of the masjid. No visor, no curtains, nothing separating them. But the men at that time were more righteous and pious. So even when the Prophet ﷺ concluded his prayer, they would not turn their back or stand up and leave. They would wait, and the Prophet would wait until the women would take their cover and properly cover themselves or leave the masjid. Then when the Prophet ﷺ turns his back to them, they would move on. Nowadays, people are different. So putting glass or mirrors, see-through mirrors, so that the men cannot see the women is permissible. Is it from the sunnah? No, it's not. But it is something permissible depending on the preference of the people of the masjid. Fuad from Bangladesh says the hadith, Allahumma hassin khuluqi kama hassanta khalqi, when looking in the mirror, the hadith is all the chains of different narrations are weak or fabricated. So the Prophet would never say this dua when looking at a mirror. So this is not authentic. However, the dua of Allahumma hassin khuluqi kama hassanta khalqi, O Allah, perfect my character as you've perfected my appearance and body, this is authentic. Shad from Iraq, a friend of his deliberately eats garlic and onions before the time or before the call for prayer so that he would skip the congregation. This is okay if he's okay with fooling Allah Azza wa Jal. When you do this deliberately, who are you fooling? Are you trying to say to Allah, okay, I have a legitimate reason? A'udhu billah. Who would dare do such a thing with Allah the Almighty? Yes, if you came home and you found a good meal and you ate it and you found that the yogurt had so much garlic in it, but you ate it because you loved it. not to skip the prayer, and this is once every blue moon, there's no problem in that. Yeah, you can skip the prayer. But to do it intentionally, not to go to prayer, this is sinful, and Allah would treat you as you treat him. Muhammad from the Philippines, he comes little bit late. The congregation has started, the Imam has finished his Fatiha, and now he's reciting Surah قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. Muhammad waits until the Imam finishes it, then goes to ruku'. Allahu Akbar, he joins him in. Why, ya Muhammad? Why are you doing this? He said, so I would not have skipped Fatiha. Akhi, what you're doing is totally wrong and bogus and against the Sunnah. And this is the benefit of knowledge. When you have knowledge, you have control over things. When you don't have knowledge, you are ignorant. So you're wasting these precious 60 or 70 seconds with the Imam, with the reward, which the Prophet said, whenever you enter the masjid and you find the Imam in a position, join in that position, whether he's sujood or sitting or standing, and you defied the order of the Prophet ﷺ because lack of knowledge. Shaitan told you, no, don't. You didn't recite the Fatiha. So it doesn't matter, even if you did not recite the Fatiha. Join in with the Imam. If it's a loud rak'ah, his Fatiha is sufficient for you. If it's a silent rak'ah, start reciting the Fatiha and don't ever do this again. Mahmoud from the Emirates, he said, what is the Firqatun Najiyah, the Saved Sect? The Saved Sect is the sect that follows the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet said that his ummah would be divided into 73 sects, all in hell except one. And this one is the one who is following the Sunnah, who has the correct aqeedah, who understands the Quran and the Sunnah with the understanding of the righteous three favorite generations whom the Prophet told us, ﷺ, those were the best of all generations. This is the Firqatun Najiyah. Regardless of their country, of their ethnicity, of their color, of their language, this is the methodology that they follow, and this what qualifies them to be upon that firqa. Labib from Bangladesh, he made a mistake when he was lying on his bed. He felt something being emitted, so he touched his private part. He didn't find anything, so he squeezed it. And this is wrong, totally unacceptable. And he got an emission of madhi. So this madhi is najis. So he went to the toilet, he washed his private part and probably his testicles, washed his hand, looked into his underwear, could not find anything. As long as you did not find anything, then it does not exist. Amjad from India, he says, in the situation where he overslept, could not pray Asr, woke up on the adhan of Maghrib. By the time he made wudu, rushed to the masjid, the iqamah was already given. Mistake number one, you should not have rushed to the masjid. The moment you woke up, you should have performed wudu and prayed Asr in your home, because the iqamah was not called. If the iqamah was called while you are in the masjid or on your way to the masjid and you did not pray Asr, you have to pray the prayers in sequence. The sequence is not pardoned or forgiven unless it's done by mistake. So someone who's ignorant, doesn't know, he prayed Maghrib, afterwards he prayed for Asr. Why? He said, I didn't know. This is the best I know. Khalas, your prayer is valid. Or someone who had done this out of forgetfulness. He woke up, made wudu, went to the masjid, prayed Maghrib. After finishing Maghrib, said, dope slap. I didn't pray Asr. Now you can pray Asr, no need to repeat the Maghrib. But when you come and you know that you did not pray Asr, and they're praying Maghrib, you join them with the intention of Asr. So you pray first, second, third with the Imam. When he offers salam, you stand up and you pray your fourth as Asr. After you finish your prayer, you go and pray Maghrib with the second congregation or on your own or whatever. What is the dalil? There is no dalil covering this, because this is ijtihad from the scholars. This case was not presented at the time of the Prophet ﷺ or the companions so that we can say that this is the dalil. And for them to say that your prayer is invalid requires a dalil. and they will not succeed in getting the dalil as well, and Allah knows best. Jahu from South Korea, there are labels on like apple juice, like cheese sandwich, like vegetable sandwiches, and they say that the ingredients, nothing is haram. But they, as a disclaimer, for legal reasons, they say there might be some contamination. Why do they say this? So that no one would sue them. So if the ingredients are halal, you can go ahead and eat it, inshallah. Saad from Qatar says, I have a confusion in regards of washing the hands with the arms. The reason of your confusion, Saad, is that we know from the description of the wudu of the Prophet ﷺ that he used to wash his hand 3 times, then turn the water and rinse his nose and mouth, and wash his face 3 times, then wash his arms to the elbows 3 times, etc. Now the ayah in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق. Allah started in the Quran by saying, when you are to pray, you have to perform wudu by washing your face, then washing your arms to the elbows. Allah did not mention washing your hands 3 times. This is why scholars said that washing the hands 3 times in the beginning is a sunnah, is not part of wudu. So if you skip it, if you immediately just go, turn on the faucet, wash your face and rinse your mouth and nose, your wudu is valid. Now, when we come to washing the arms to the elbows, the arm begins from the hands. Saying that I washed my hands earlier does not work here. Why? Because one of the pillars of wudu is the sequence. I cannot wash my feet, then wash my face. I have to follow the sequence: face, arms, head, feet. If I miss the placement of these 4 pillars, my wudu is invalid. Therefore, washing the hands in the beginning is not part of the wudu. It's a sunnah. It's for cleanliness. Washing the face is number 1. Then washing the arms to the elbows, which includes your hands, fingers, and the whole thing, from the tip of your fingers to your elbows. And I hope this answers your question. Siri from Germany says, I am forced to study a subject that has kufr. And so many schools have this, novels. But the novel he's mentioning, the amount of kufr found, the level of kufr is unprecedented. They're making fun of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, of Archangel Jibreel, of Allah. This is blatant kufr. There is no way for you to accept studying this. You have to raise this with the authorities of your school, with the government, with the parliament member representing you, saying that this is blatant kufr. You're insulting Islam. If it's a Latin novel, if it's something about Shakespeare, about false gods, okay, I cannot do anything. But to target Islam in this fashion, this is not permissible for you to study, and you have to make a stand about this, and Allah knows best. Halima from the Netherlands, can we listen to ruqya and make dua instead of performing it? You can, if there is a necessity. What do you mean by necessity? Someone who doesn't know how to recite ruqya, you can listen to it. Someone who, whenever he recites it, he gets seizures and falls and suffers, you can listen to it. But there is no doubt that you reciting it, despite all the hardship and difficulty, is the best. When you recite ruqya on yourself, when you wipe yourself, when you recite it on a cup of water or a bottle of water and drink and wash from it, this is the best, inshallah. Khalilullah from Nigeria, he says sometimes the Imam offers taslim, and the issue of saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, is an issue of dispute, and whether barakatuhu can be added or not. So if the Imam does it, should we follow him? Alhamdulillah, it seems that it is much easier than being a problem. So if you follow it, according to the issue of dispute, there's no problem. If you don't, if you just say Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, there is no problem in that either, and Allah knows best. Akbar from India, he says, I have a serious chronic illness which causes me great deal of pain and continuous illness if I perform ghusl before Fajr. I don't know how authentic this is. I'm taking his word for it. I'm not a doctor, so I can assess his situation. But if seriously performing ghusl would cause you to fall ill for a number of days, and you know this is for certain, then you're exempted from washing the organ of your body or the part of your body that causes this illness. So most likely it's your head and face, or it's your hair, or it's rinsing your, I don't know. If this is the case, then you have to perform ghusl to the whole body, neck down, and afterwards you perform tayammum for skipping washing your face, or washing your head, or the organ that you were forced to wash. But the rest you must wash that as well. Kareem from Holland, there is a man he knows that when he has OCD, and when he prays, he feels that he's out of control. So he may curse, he may complain to Allah Azza wa Jal, why have you created me? Why are you doing this? Sometimes he's so frustrated, he beats the prayer mat. By the way, the prayer mat is a piece of cloth. So if you beat it, if you burn it, if you trash it, there's no problem in that. It's not a sacred thing. It's not, it's just a piece of, you can just wipe the floors with it. No problem in that. So he asks, has he committed an act of kufr? This depends. We have to evaluate him mentally. If the doctors, the psychiatrists, the therapists say that he is mentally ill to the extent that when he gets these rage fits, he is insane. He's like a person who's intoxicated. He doesn't remember. He is not accountable for his actions. In this case, he's not sinful. But if it is selective, he can say it and he can hold it back. And he has the ability to control himself, but he's not, then he has committed an act of kufr. May Allah protect us. Muhammad from India, what are the excuses that allow us to leave the prayer in the masjid? Akhi, there's no checklist that says that, okay, number 1, number 2, number 3, you can skip. For example, among the things that, it's not a life and death situations as well. The hadith tells us that there is no prayer while a person is fighting the urge to answer the call of nature, or when the food is served. So the Prophet tells us, delay your prayer if you have to answer the call of nature. Go ahead and answer it. And delay the prayer if the food is served and you're hungry and you want to eat. Eat whatever is sufficient and go catch up with the remaining of the prayer. Also, eating garlic and onions. The smell is offensive. And the Prophet told us not to enter the masjid. So this allows you to skip. And this is a legitimate reason if done randomly, not like our friend here from Iraq, Shad's friend, not Shad. When he eats it deliberately to skip the prayer with the congregation. This is the act of hypocrites. No, I'm talking about someone who randomly ate it and skipped prayer accordingly. This is totally legitimate. Among the reasons that are reasons that happen once every blue moon. So you have a doctor visiting your mom and it's time for prayer and there's no one to stay with your mother. You have to be with her and this male doctor who's visiting her. This is a legitimate excuse. Your wife is gone to bring the kids from school and your little child who's 3 years of age is having a fever and no one to stay with him in the home. So you have to stay with him until somebody attends the child. This is a legitimate reason. and so on. This is something between you and Allah. Nobody is holding a stick waiting for you outside your home if you don't show up for salat, and he beats the heck out of you. So you try your level best to do what pleases Allah, and Allah knows best. Frishta from the US, she says, can you tell us the ruling on nun's dhabiha so that we can remove the confusion in the United States and elsewhere? What is dhabiha? Dhabiha is a slaughtered animal. So nun dhabiha is an animal that was not slaughtered. It was killed by banging its head, electrifying it, gassing it, strangling it, many ways. And these ways were mentioned in verse 3, chapter 5, Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned that these types of non-dhabiha are haram. Whether it falls from a mountain, whether it's banged on the head, where it was engaged in a fight and ended in die, all of these things are haram. So the question is, what about us who live in the States or in Europe? Can we eat from what is sold in the market? If you're in Belgium or maybe Holland, and by decree, by law, the government prohibits anyone to slaughter. So no way you go to any slaughterhouse and you find that they're slaughtering. They have to stun an animal or electrify it and kill it, then they start to slaughter it. If this is the case, and this is the rule, then it is totally prohibited for you to eat meat there, unless it's graded as halal, unless a Muslim farmer who slaughtered himself and he presented to you. But to buy it from the market or from restaurants is totally prohibited to eat. This is dead meat. This is Negis. It's like pork. But if you're in the UK or in the US and it's a Christian country, predominantly Christians live there, and Allah permitted us to eat from the meat of the Christians slaughtered. They slaughter their animal. Don't misquote me and say, oh, Sheikh is saying that you have to slaughter the Christians. No. Again, this is your sick understanding. When we say the slaughtering of the Christians, meaning the animals that the Christians had slaughtered, these animals are halal for us to eat. So in America, I don't know whether they're slaughtered or not. What to do? There are two opinions. The most authentic opinion, which I follow, is the opinion that Sheikh bin Baz and Ibn Uthaymeen had given their opinion upon, which is that this is a Christian country, and in the Quran, Allah tells us that the meat which is served by the people of the book, the Christians, the Jews, is halal for us. So by default, it is halal until proven otherwise, until someone comes to me and says, Sheikh, this was not slaughtered. This was electrified until it died. I say, okay, now I refrain. And the justification is that the Prophet ﷺ in Medina was invited by a Jew woman, and he attended her invitation, and she offered him a sheep, which the Prophet ate from, not asking her, where did you get the money to buy the sheep? Is it from riba? Is it from haram? No, he didn't ask. And he didn't ask her, okay, was this slaughtered? Did you mention the name of Allah? No, because she's a Jew. She's from the people of the book. By default, it's halal. So likewise, it is halal for you to eat until proven otherwise in the US or in Europe, and Allah knows best. Finally, Hudayfa. Why do people in the haram and some imams, when they recite, not look at the position of prostration and look forward? Akhi, this is their problem, not mine. You're asking me, how did the Prophet pray? I'm telling you. You're asking me, what's the right way to pray? I'm telling you, you have to look at your area of prostration. If these imams do otherwise, then they're not following the sunnah. And not necessarily everything they do is according to the sunnah. They are human beings. They're not great scholars of Islam that are followed in every single thing they do. First of all. Second of all, some of them, as I've heard, because they recite the Quran, they want their voices to be beautifully coming out, so they have to raise their heads and look in front. And this is a lame excuse. No way that you go against the way of the Prophet ﷺ and say that, well, this is for necessity. It's like people when they recite and they want to go for ruku', some imams do this. They go to the microphone and say, Allahu Akbar. Everybody is in ruku' and the guy is just interested in his voice coming to the microphone. And then he goes for ruku'. This is totally bogus and not from the sunnah. So follow the sunnah. Do not follow the people. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. This is all the time we have until we meet you tomorrow. Inshallah, 4 o'clock, Mecca time. I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين